Hi, it's Renee, and this is Making Potions Part 7. It's been a while since we last talked, and a lot has occurred, both good and bad. Probably the most significant thing which has gone down is that my dev machine completely exploded. Or at least the motherboard blew something, and maybe more of the machine died. I took it in to be diagnosed, and the recommendation was that I throw it in the trash because it's a laptop, and that's really expensive to fix when my cat is not stepping on the cable. Here we go. Come here. All right. Oh no. Sorry. Um, anyway, so that definitely threw a wrench in things. Luckily, it was convenient at the time for me to build a new PC. And so now I actually have a tower and no longer am just purely working off of a laptop with a ton of things plugged into it. Unfortunately, that did cut down on my dev time, getting that replaced. However, there's still a lot of things I have to show you. Probably too much because I should have been doing these blogs more frequently, but it's great. So I have a ton of stuff to cover, including updating to Unity 4.6, which I did to use the GUI system. I had been holding off previously of implementing a GUI user interface. GUI stands for Graphical User Interface for those who aren't aware. And I wanted to hold off to Unity 4.6 because I believe that it would be advantageous to know how to use the Unity tools instead of using something like NGUI. And I think it's going to pay off, but I don't really have anything to compare to, so who knows? All right, so let's get into the more technical stuff of what's going on. I'm going to go through an order of things I fixed. It's not necessarily the easiest order, but it's the order of the things that were implemented. So the first thing that I implemented since we last talked is I fixed the bug where there was an infinite knockback. And the reason there was an infinite knockback is because I had the potion object, and then I had the effects that the potion did attached to the potion itself. But when the potion blew up, I would destroy the potion object, which ended up destroying the effect and thus the coroutines I had on the effect to cancel like the force knockback effect. So in order to fix that, I made it destroy / turn off the sprite and continue with the knockback effect and then destroy the knockback effect. And that works great now for the monsters, but for some reason it's not working well when it interacts with my main character, and I haven't bug fixed it yet. I might show you that. It's kind of silly because she just gets pushed infinitely in one direction and you can fight against it, but it's kind of going against the current. I attempted to implement, well, I didn't attempt. I started implementing destructible grass and other objects, and then I decided that there were probably some more important things that I need to work on creating first, since that grass is pretty much going to act like a monster that can't move when it comes down to it. So one of the things I thought would be most important to implement is saving. I followed a tutorial, which I'll try to link below in the comments, about how I did that, but the gist of it is that you put all of your information into like a serializable blob of info, and then you turn it into binary and save it to a file and reload it. So I don't want to get too deep into that, especially because I haven't tested it yet. So I'll just show you what some of the code looks like for that, and I'm going to switch over to Visual Studio. Here we go. So this is the save code itself. As you can see, I add the game current, which I have here, game. Yeah, and turn it into binary format, save it out to a file, serialize it. Yeah. And let's go, and then the opposite, of course, you grab it, you load the file, and you deserialize it and shove it back into this. So here's what the saved game itself looks like. Ah, that's not it. It is very simple. So it takes the current game state, which I have. I haven't created a game state yet, but it will be here. And then it takes the inventory, which right now is the most important aspect of the game. pretty much the only thing that is continuous aside from HP. So that should all be very simple. I'm hoping that when I test it, it'll go amazingly and work perfectly. So after implementing that, I was getting pretty burnt out. I was having a hard time focusing well, so I decided to add chickens. And this is one of the main character or mob types that I had spent time thinking about in this game. And what I really like about the concept of the chicken character or monster is that it is going to be one of the first monsters you encounter, and it is going to drive home the fact that attacking monsters is not always the best way to do things, or at least like outright trying to kill them is not the best way to do things. So this is, of course, the traditional tipping my hat to death chickens. So if you attack this chicken at all, it becomes a gigantic, raging chicken of doom. Actually, it doesn't change size at all, but it will one-shot you and pursue you infinitely. So don't hurt the chickens. That adds some really interesting side effects. So it means that if you're fighting the little blob guy here, and you throw a potion at him, and they're all AoE, and it blows up too close to a chicken, you die. Uh, However, the chickens are also scared of your broom. So if you sprint towards the chicken, they run away and they drop chicken feathers, which is what you need from them. My idea for how this is going to work is that you're going to encounter chickens and be chasing something else before you have an opportunity to create an actual attack potion, which means that you'll chase through them and you'll see that they run away and drop feathers. And then hopefully the players will be like, if you chase chickens, you get feathers, and that's what I need from them. Life is all good. And perhaps some coy advice from your mentor will inform you that attacking chickens is a bad idea or something. We'll see. So, yes, chickens. Oh, before I forget, one of the most important things I've been doing recently is I've been working with my writer and talking about plot and how the story's going to be and character development and really what we're looking for in this game and the feel of it. And it's really interesting to be working on this vision now with someone else because initially it was sort of my baby and like I had come up with everything for it and I was glad that people were excited about it, but I also realized that I'm not the best story writer. I'm a good writer. I can write action sequences or technical papers, but when it comes down to creating a really compelling plot with compelling characters, that's where I fall short. So that's why I've been working with my amazing writer, and it's really interesting to watch this game and its plot take shape in ways that I didn't predict due to the influence of someone else. Right now it seems like this will probably seem fairly obvious, but we're going to integrate in a lot of old fairy tales and sort of like tip our hat to them. So Goose and the Golden Egg, a lot of the Grimm's fairy tales. And I think that's going to be really compelling and really interesting for people of all ages because fairy tales are fairly widely known, and it'll be great to have sort of that retake on them. And of course, I'm sure we're all aware of various like TV shows and movies which have done similar and are quite popular due to it. And it just seems like something that's really going to be fun to do. So I'm looking forward to that, and working with other people will bring your project in directions that you haven't predicted, but will still be good. The other thing that I learned about working with other people is sometimes you don't like their ideas and you have to tell them because it's really important because it's your project and you want it to be great. So like the first draft of the first like plot section, the introduction, I really didn't like Or it's not I didn't like it. I didn't think it fit with the vision, and it was taking the game in a direction which I did not think synced up well with the combat and discovery sections of it. And what's great is working with people who are really good at taking constructive criticism and don't get upset about it. So worked through that, and the next version of it was absolutely amazing, and I'm really, really excited to see where this goes from here. So, constructive criticism, awesome. All right, now that I've gone off on that writing plot tangent working with other people, and chickens. Let's talk more about how chickens operate. So I'm going to go back into Unity here. And if we look at the chicken itself, we will see that there's the chicken shadow, which acts as a different sprite, the health bar, and the health bar. Yeah, that's not important. But on the chicken here, we have the normal monster melee attack, which is the same that the poison blob has, and then we have a special monster movement for chickens. And I, for some reason, have this twice, which is definitely wrong. So we're going to delete this and hope I don't break things. Yeah. All right. Of course, we have the normal, we have the stats on it, and if you note, this thing has a ton of hit points. I believe my girl has 100 hit points, so this has 10,000. So you will not be able to kill the chicken easily. However, I think it would be really cool to put in a bonus for killing the chicken, like some crazy drop. If you actually manage to attack one of these things and survive, you get really cool loot or some sort of achievement or something. But right now the loot table is blank. You might be a little confused because I said it dropped feathers, but the loot table is blank. That's because the loot table is set up to work only when things die, and I really didn't want to try to add in an active loot table and a death loot table when I wasn't sure if any other monsters were going to be having that same thing, and when it's all going to be very monster specific in how they drop loot when that's happening. So maybe I'll integrate it in. It shouldn't be too much work, but for right now, the integration of dropping things is within the monster movement here. So if you'll see that it drops the feather prefab is attached to this script, because dragging and dropping prefabs is way easier than trying to find them in your script itself. As I have learned previously, and I believe I had noted to you. So let's take a look at this monster movement for chicken. So you'll see that this looks a lot like the other monster. Oh, I added it, but it has additional information. So it has a max speed, the same as the max speed on the normal monster movement, but it also has a patrol speed. That's because the chicken ignores you when you're not interacting with it, unlike the blob. Right now the blob kind of sits around until it sees you and then attacks you. I'm definitely going to want to add in a patrol movement for the monster as well. I'm not sure if I want to separate out like monster behavior with monster patrol behavior, because I can see that being used a lot in the same way. I also added for both the chicken and all other monsters a bull of aggroed. And I think this is really good for non-aggressive monsters, because if they're non-aggressive and then they turn to aggressive, you need some sort of way to note that change. One of the issues that I ran into Oh, and here I thought it died and it just disconnected. Sorry about that. So one of the issues that I ran into while playing with the chicken is that I was able to correctly switch between a patrol state and an aggressive state, but I was only referring to that within the script here. However, I needed to change that on the stats or someplace else, because if it's a non-aggressive chicken and you run into it, it still hurts you because of that attack script always sort of being on. So now there's a stat pool that gets changed whether something is currently aggressive or not, which also means you could pacify things, which will be cool. So it is interested in where the girl is, and then it checks to see if it has lost hit points. And if it has lost hit points and it's not aggressive, it becomes aggressive. This might need to be changed to be more specifically damage incoming from the girl, because right now this means if the chicken walks over fire, it will then punch you in the face, which is probably not ideal. However, I'm not sure that chickens will be around where you're tossing fire, or that you should be tossing fire around chickens anyway. I don't plan to populate the world full of chickens. I plan to have them mostly in one area. So we'll see how that goes. It has an aggro range that should be implemented here, but it hasn't. And then it has a patrol where it finds a random spot in a particular radius around it, and then looks to where it is, or it finds a random spot in a circle, it adjusts that to from its current position, and then attempts to go that way for a certain amount of time. And if it can't get there, it turns around and goes a different way. And that's important. Instead of, before I had it always trying to get to the point no matter what, but if there were objects around it, it couldn't get to the point and it would often just end up running into walls infinitely. While it can still run into walls infinitely, there's a very low chance of that because it attempts to go that way until it thinks that it's tried that, and then it turns around. Alright, and now I added a cooldown timer on dropping the feathers, because without a cooldown for when you're chasing it dropping the feathers, it just like dumps feathers everywhere as soon as you're near it. What I haven't implemented yet, however, is a limit to the number of feathers it can dump, and with how people are really good at breaking games, I figured that that's something I need to implement to make sure that people don't chase chickens around until their screen is completely filled with feathers. I noticed that there's UI elements in here, and I will talk about them later, but for now, let's just ignore them, and I'm going to show you how chickens interact. So I'm going to be chased this whole time. Hi, Blub. Blub, man. Oh, computer's so slow. It's thinking about it. I think it's Unity's having an issue. Do 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 do. There it goes. Ah! Alright, so see the chicken patting around while I'm being chased. But if I chase it, oh god, yes, run away! Ah! Look at that. And then I stop chasing it, and it's just chilling. And now I'm gonna throw something at it. Come back here. No, not you. Alright. Zoom best here. Yes, chicken, run from me. Oh, wow. So chickens become aggressive. Oh god, chicken's aggressive. And it's gonna one-shot me. There we go. Dead. Dead. Super dead. So that's how the chicken works. So, now let's talk about all of this other stuff that you see on the screen. Isn't it quite lovely? I'm going to unplay this game. And you'll notice, where are those UI elements? You can only see the health bars, right? That's because in the Unity 4.6 GUI, there's multiple parts of the UI. There are multiple objects, which a UI consists of. And the first one is the canvas. Now, canvas is sort of like the base UI blob thing that all other UI elements have to be on. You need a canvas to have anything else. When you're dealing with the health bar, you want that canvas to be a child of your sprite or your game object. And there's a difference, and we'll talk about it momentarily. Once you have your canvas as a child of my headset dying. No, it's working. All right. Once you have your canvas as a child of your like monster game object or your main character game object, you can then put in panels, and panels are where you then add in all of the nice stuff like buttons and sliders and all of that jazz, images, text. And we're going to just go through one of these health bars here. So these health bars are all prefabs of each other with change text on them. And I have a script to update them, which takes their maximum health and it then divides it by their current health, and then it fills that. We'll talk about that. So here's the health bar canvas. See, it's a canvas, it's got a canvas scaler. Now, the canvas scaler, the canvases are actually gigantic. If you see sort of coming out of my camera, that's part of a canvas for my action bar, and it's huge, and I'll show you in a minute. But you do have to scale them down a ton, and you can sort of scale them down by eye, or you can scale them down specifically with references and whatnot. Then below that we have our panel, which shouldn't be really transformed at all. There we go. A potential background. It can have, I believe this is completely transparent. I totally didn't mean to do that. It's not completely transparent. No, pretend it is. Shh. And then on this panel, we have an image, which is of the health bar itself. That's this green bit here and here and here. And you can see that it is colored green. And I really kind of messed this up previously. I couldn't figure out how to change the color on things. And then I realized that there's a color field which you can modify. And I don't believe this was shown when I just played or gave you guys the preview, but this color changes with how full it is. And when I say full, you notice here it has a fill amount, and it's set to 1. That means 1 is completely full and 0 is completely empty. And it's the same way for everything, because that way I can treat it like percentages without actually having to do the times 100%. And thus I have this beautiful health bar controller script, which I will pull up and switch to here. And you can see it gets the stats component from the game object is on by using .parent get component, which probably isn't the best way to do it, but I couldn't really figure out a better way, especially because it has to refer to the specific object it's on. Because if you have 2 chickens and you're trying to find chicken slash blah 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 blah, it's gonna do bad things. So the percent HP here is a float of the hit points divided by the max hit points. I can then change the fill amount of that bar, which is being filled horizontally, to that amount. And then I can change the color of it, depending on if it is below 25%, below 50%, or anything else. Above 50%, I guess there. Yep, so that's how the health bar works. Oh yes, and then there's also a mini panel inside the panel, which has text in it, and I renamed the text chicken or girl or poison blob. I don't believe Girl's her name anymore. I think her name's actually Luna. But for everything else, she is named Girl in all of the game files. And I think that's something that's really difficult as you progress through a game, is making sure that names stay consistent. One of my friends who's a game developer has a game that's been out for about 3 years, and there's very set names that people use to refer to different units. And if you go into the actual files for those units, they are not named that because they had a different name originally, and when they changed the name, they only changed like how the name is displayed and not the name of the unit itself. So try to choose your names appropriately. And then I'm not sure if you should keep a reference page or something, but along those lines would probably be helpful, especially for bringing new people onto your project. If it's just you, who really cares? But if you have to deal with a lot of other people who are looking at these files, it will become more important. All right, what's next on our list? So I had to separate the sprite out from being on the main game object for like my chicken and girl and poison blob. And I had to do this because when I put these health bars on and the health bar was a sub of the chicken, I had been switching the sprite which way the chicken was facing by reversing the whole chicken or monster itself, which meant as a child it was flipping as well, and so my health bar would be backwards and the text would be backwards, and that was really bad. So I just pulled the sprite out and I flipped the sprite now only instead of the entire game object. I could have done a really hacky version of where the health bar would flip opposite of the game object every time the object flipped, but that seemed like a bad idea. So instead it's just flipping the sprite, and as you saw previously, that's been working great. So now let's zoom out and show you what I was talking about when I said that canvases were big. So remember the action bar? The canvas for it, yes, we're still zooming out. Oh my god, is this big? So that's my whole game scene down there in that little corner. And this is the action bar, the inventory, and the item view page. So I've been spending a lot of time on the inventory stuff and UI. So the action bar was fairly easy to create. It's simply, where is it? A canvas, which is this huge thing, a panel, and within the panel, there it goes, just buttons. So we have buttons within this little panel here. They have rect transforms on them, and the rect transforms lets you stretch it or fully in all directions to fill. It lets you put set distances away. So for example, what I have here means that the middle of this object will be in the middle of its panel, and you can set how far away it is from the left side of it. And I actually have all of these buttons set to be away from the left side just to keep them consistent, and so that if I want to make the panel larger, it doesn't really take trying to add one in the middle and figure out which one. It's just sort of all in a row. So upon these buttons, there is an image and there can be a text. So this one just has text. These ones, I deleted the text. The generic button in Unity has text, but you can just nuke it. And I put in images of my potions instead. And these images just fill up the button itself due to the rect transform on the images, which means that I can change the size of the button and the images will scale with it. And if I wanted to have the images have always like a 10 pixel border, I could do that, and as I changed everything, it would scale with it. It helps keep everything really nice and together. Then with the buttons, you can put an on-click script, and in order to do that, you hit the plus button down here. You pick what I have here is a button responder that just has the script for this stuff on it. And then if there is a reference to anything that's required, you can input one like field in on your buttons. It can be another button, a slider, an integer, but they only take one. I'm not sure why. I kind of dislike that, but that's how it is. So let's take a look at this button responder script, which is called Potion Bar. That's not it. Potion Bar. And switch over here. So this is fairly straightforward. At the start, I grab the girl because I need to get the spawn script component off of her for spawning my potions. And then these are just the two potion buttons is, spawn script, spawn potion. And that's it. It just does that and adds in and calls that. It just calls that function with the input of 1. And here I have a slightly different one. This is for toggling the inventory. And it just sets it to the opposite state which was in. So I will have a little bit to talk about that in a second. But let me just show you how that button toggling thing or button pushing works. So here, instead of pushing 1 or 2, I can just click and then throw. Click and then throw. Let's take some damage. See, I can click on myself and heal that damage. Throw and throw. There we go. Yay, and I can not put the potions away. All right, that's something to change. Now, let's talk about the inventory side of things. So the action bar was pretty straightforward and simple to do. However, when I got into the inventory, I noticed a lot of problems. One of which is that my inventory code did not actually work appropriately. That's because with the list that I was creating, I was attempting to modify a reference, or not a reference, I was trying to modify a copy of Man, this headset hates me. I was attempting to modify a copy of the inventory entry instead of actually modifying the copy of the inventory entry. So now what I do is I pull out the inventory entry, I modify it, and then I rewrite the entire thing. Since my inventory only contains the name of the object and how much you're holding and how much you have at home, it's actually not very much to modify since I have the rest of my inventory in a separate file that includes the prefabs and all of the detailed descriptions. So, as I mentioned, the bag button here toggles the base inventory UI on and off. I ran into an issue starting with that base inventory deactivated because then my bag button couldn't find the inventory UI to reactivate it, which was interesting. So if we look at this inventory right here and then go to this inventory UI manager, boop, boop, and switch this over. You'll note that I have this not in here. Awake, destroy, game object. I don't remember where I put this in. Everything is set up on the start of this. Well, I actually kind of forgot, but I'm going to go over this anyway. So I have this set up so that when you enable it, it sets the item view itself to false. So this is the issue that I had previously, is that I had to enable the item view, which is that little box, for it to be able to find it. And then when I open up the inventory, it takes that item view and disables it. Because if I started with it disabled, then it couldn't find it to enable it when I pressed the button. I'm not sure why that's the case. I guess if you have something disabled, you might not actually want to be using it at all. But, that's how it happens. Now, one of the issues that I ran into when working with the inventory is I was trying to make prefabs for the inventory items, and they can't be full copy prefabs because even if you put them in a list, they don't reference themselves properly. And so what I was trying to do is when you opened the list, it would populate it by going through my inventory items and creating an inventory item prefab button for each of them. And it was losing the connection to its parent or something, and it was spawning them very strangely. It just wasn't working out. So instead of spending too much time on that, I just listed all of the ones I want to have base, and then I put a number to distinguish them. And so now I can reference them by the number that's on them and then populate them as I go down the list, which was a good solution. Again, one of the important things, especially in early game development, is to focus on just getting things working and then worry about perfecting them and changing them later, because you'll probably be coming back to them later anyway. So in the script here, I go through the inventory items that I have. I try to find ones which I have held, so they have an amount on them. When I do, I find the information for that, and I create a inventory struct that I can refer to for the item prefab that has the prefab on it, the sprite, the display names, description, flavor, and the name itself to reference it. And then I populate an entry of item count, which I go through when I find things, and add in how many of those items I have. And then I bump up the item count and go through again and just keep looking for items. So I'll show you what that looks like, and I'll talk about some of the issues that I had on that as well. So we're just gonna run around and chase some chickens. Chicken! Oh, thanks for your feather, dude. Chicken! Feathers are awesome. Alright, dude, leave me alone. So, as you can see now, we have the sprite populated here, times 2, and that is a chicken feather. Now, you probably won't be able to tell this by looking, but if you notice there's very faint gray boxes here. That is because without having a populated image, there's still an image on here. And it has a, let's see, yeah, a color set to it already. Now, I try to make this color as non-apparent as possible, so it matches the same color as the rest of the button, but they have different opacities, so you can still see them. And I probably need to change that. But before I had the image background being just like a big pure white, and so when an image wasn't rendering, there was just all these boxes below it. This is not something I plan to spend too much time on because I don't know what my inventory is going to look like when I start working with a graphic artist or an artist. But it's certainly an issue to consider. So let's go into enabling this item view itself. So the item view here, oh, there. Quickly, this is a scroll bar. A scroll bar isn't just like a button-esque thing that you can drag up and down, and you attach it to the items that you want to drag. You attach it to the inventory mask items. I don't remember how I did this. This is embarrassing. Scroll bar has the source image on it, and the direction is bottom to top. I swear I did this on the inventory. Should be on the items. Oh, here we go. So on the mask, I have a scroll rect script on it, and it refers to this vertical scroll bar. And so the scroll rect affects the items. As so the mask is the panel which I'm using here, and my items are actually larger. You can see they go down here. And what the mask does is I added a mask to this panel itself, which is smaller than its child. And I said, well, only show the child that's in here, which allows me to have a wider area which I can scroll up and down. And so you put on a scroll rect, you refer to that area that you want to move, and you refer to the scroll bar. So I'll show you here. It scrolls up and down. You can even zoom it up and down as well. All right, now we go to the item view. So the item view is another panel. And then I have the sprites, different name files, and I have some inputs here. I have a slider and an input field, which I've connected to each other through a little bit of a script, which I can show you. And this is so that when I move the slider, it adjusts the input number, and if I adjust the input number, it changes the slider, so they can sort of show you what the other one is at the value of. And I also have a button for tossing, which is not implemented yet. This is going to be, I want to throw away 2 feathers, and you can drop them on the ground. And then I have a close button just for closing this panel, which toggles the disable on it. So I'm going to chase and grab a feather here. And if I click on this chicken feather button, it's going to toggle the panel, and it's going to populate it with 1 chicken feather. So it says that I'm carrying 1, and I don't have it at home. Here's the description, here's the flavor text, and if you'll notice, I can either switch between 1 and 0 on the feathers here. Now, if I were to grab 2 feathers, I change the max value on that scroll bar, and I have 1, 2, or 1. So this was really awesome. It was great to implement, and let me find the code for it. This would probably be the Inventory UI Manager. I'm going to switch back over to the code here. So when I turn the Inventory UI on, I just set it to active, and then I find the, yes, it takes in the 1 number, which is the number which is on the button. I'll show you where that is. And then it knows it already has a list where it says, okay, button 1 has all of these things to it, and it can just go down that and grab like the name, description, the flavor, the amount, and the slider. And if you notice here on the slider, it changes the slider max value to the amount held. And that's the magic there. And here, let's go back here. So on these items, I have the button for them takes in an input. The first one takes in 0, second one is 1, 2, and that's how they differentiate which button it is and refer to what it's rendering in that list of items. And then the item view portrays the button input of that item on the list. And that's it. I'll kill this blob so you can see what it looks like to have multiple of these. And yeah, that's progress I made thus far. If you have any questions, please ask me. I know that not a ton of people have been working with the Unity GUI system, especially since 4.6 is so new. If you're working on a different project, you probably just don't have the time to do that. I can't say that I'm expert at it, but I've implemented an inventory, which I'm super excited about. What I have up next on my plate is going to be scene changes, actually testing to make sure that my save files work, like limiting the chicken drop feather amount, and then seeing about implementing an UI for like conversation between characters and scripting scenes where events occur and you really just have to go through the plot. So I have the base part of the game. Like this is a game now, pretty much. I just need adding crafting of the potions and a potion inventory limit. Right now you have infinite potions, which is against everything that this game is about. And it'll be uh, it'll be good. My current goal is to try to get a workable alpha game by March or within March, which means I need to find an artist, which is kind of tricky, I guess. I haven't really dealt with hiring people before, so I'm gonna have to work with that. I've gotten some advice from some of my friends who work in the game industry and have hired people previously. I really like their advice. What I'm trying to do is pay a lump sum for the work to get the demo out, and then I plan to do crowdfunding, and then with the crowdfunding money, offer them a base salary plus a percentage of the profits that the game makes up to a cap. And that's my current plan. So one of the things I definitely need to spend time on is searching for artists and probably searching for someone to do audio as well. I'm more blessed in my friends who have audio experience. So there's that. I know this was a really long talk, and I know that my headphones died a lot, but sorry. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's always great to talk to you guys. I know that you guys are just kind of like a camera right now, but it really helps me to talk through what I've been working on and to have to justify my own choices. And it also really helps to have your feedback and support, even if it just is like a view tick +1 on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for everything, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Oh, and Merry Christmas, as it is nearly that time. So, bye.